Hello, I am Clark Kennedy-Paesler, and I am owner of Clark Gourmet in Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to Pilot Light Family Meal, where I'll be showing you today how to make homemade ricotta cheese and then a final dish with the cheese that you made. So to make ricotta cheese, really simple. We'll only need 3 ingredients. First off, we've got our milk. This is whole milk, which is really important for the recipe. And also, this is 1 gallon, which will make 1 pound of cheese at the end. You can absolutely try this recipe out with less milk, let's say a half gallon, but then you would also need to make your other ingredients be divided in half as well. So to make the cheese separate from just milk into curds, which is the cheese part, and whey, which is the liquid sweet water part, we need vinegar. So this is apple cider vinegar, which works great. It tastes great in this recipe. You can absolutely use white vinegar to make it work, or even lemon juice, whatever you have on hand will work. And then once the cheese is finished, we will just season it with a little bit of salt. So one of the things we'll need for this recipe is a towel, and conveniently my towel here is a map of Italy. So if you look at the towel, this part here kind of looks like a boot, and that's kind of what Italy is referred to as the boot. The part down at the bottom that the boot is kicking is Sicily, which is where ricotta comes from. So in Italian, ricotta means recooked, but a lot of people don't know in Sicilian, the original word for ricotta was zamataru, which means dairy farmer, which obviously is where the ricotta comes from. So very simple, but I just wanted to run through what we'll need equipment-wise for the recipe. We'll need a pot that's big enough to hold a gallon of milk. Something like that would work. We'll need a wooden spoon or a plastic spatula, something to just stir the bottom every now and then so it doesn't end up sticking to the bottom and burning. We'll also need some measuring cups. So we'll need a 1/4 cup of the apple cider vinegar. Measuring spoons just to measure out the salt, but you could also just use a regular spoon. And we will need a colander. So this is a kind of like a bowl with small holes in it, which will line with the towel to strain the cheese once it separates into curds. And then finally at the end, a little bowl to mix the cheese with salt. Okay, so step 1, all we're gonna do is open the milk, and we're gonna pour it into the pot. I like to do it a little bit at an angle, just kind of keeps the milk more intact and helps it from splashing, but you're just pouring it into the pot. We'll just pour that all in there. So for our next step, we're just gonna take that milk, put it over the burner, turn the pot to high. The only thing to worry about is to you have your wooden spoon here, just give it a stir, just kind of stirring the bottom as you're going. You just don't want it to stick to the bottom and burn. Sometimes that will happen. So just giving it an occasional stir. And then I also have a thermometer here. If you want to be really specific, you can put your thermometer in 195 degrees. So now we're getting close. You can see you'll start to get some little bubbles on the top of the milk. One thing that both kids and parents should be aware of is if it does come to a full boil, it can boil over. So obviously that kind of makes a mess and it doesn't smell great. So it might be safer to use a little bit of a bigger pot. So now I've got my 1/4 cup here of the apple cider vinegar that is now on standby. And I do have a slotted spoon here. For me, it helps mix the vinegar in a little bit easier. You can absolutely still use your wooden spoon or a regular spoon without holes, but the holes do make it a little bit easier to mix. And you do kind of want to be stirring a little bit more, making sure the bottom's not sticking as you get close to the boil. Okay, so now I've got my handy oven mitts here. Anytime you touch anything hot, coming from an oven, coming from a burner, from a grill, it doesn't matter if it's hot. Use your oven mitts or kitchen gloves. So I've got the burner off so that I don't catch these mitts on fire. I'm just gonna very carefully carry this over to the sink. Don't pour it in yet. And I've got my colander, which is the metal strainer with holes you'd use for pasta, ready to go in the sink, and my spoon. So now I'm going to take this spoon. You can also just very gently pour it. I think you want to be really gentle with these curds. They're so delicate and so tender. So I like to hand ladle. I think it makes for a nicer product. Another interesting thing that you'll find with a lot of cheese making is you'll have cheesecloth. It's just a very, very fine mesh that you'll use instead of a towel when you're making cheese in a factory to strain the curds out. And now we're just going to very gently pour the rest of the way in. And make sure that sometimes the sides of the towel want to collapse. Just kind of get rid of the gloves, and then you're just really gonna let this sit now. I'll give it like one little very gentle stir, but now we're just gonna let it sit until all that liquid strains off. That, I think, to me looks great. See how it's got these nice big milky curds here, and then we're just gonna take this towel and kind of carefully, so you don't spill all that hard work, into your bowl. Okay. All right. So that's kind of what we want it to look like there. Next, we're just gonna take our salt and mix it in. Now, you can, in addition to the salt, you can also add honey. You could add a little bit of lemon juice. You know, really can kind of flavor it however you'd like. So I'll start with, let's say, half teaspoon of salt. And anytime I'm adding salt to something, I always try to mix it in, and then give it a taste, because salt's one of those things that chefs will use to season everything, and it really makes a huge difference in how something tastes. But you don't want to actually be able to taste the salt. You want to taste the ingredient itself. Well, I think that tastes great. We made here a little bit of stuffed shells, so jumbo pasta shells that we cooked off in salted water and then let cool down. And then we took the ricotta and filled it, and we did a little bit of tomato sauce on the bottom. We used fresh tomatoes and just cooked them in a pan, but you can obviously just use a jarred tomato sauce as well. And then what we'll do is we'll take these shells, sprinkle a little bit of mozzarella on them, and then bake them in the oven for about 30 minutes and enjoy it for dinner. Thank you for joining me. Tag us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at PilotLightChefs, #PLFamilyMeal, and visit the Food Education Center and click on Family Resources for today's recipe, additional activities to do related to today's recipe, and for additional family lessons and videos.
We want to know how you and your family are enjoying this recipe and making it together. So tag us. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at PilotLightChefs, #PLFamilyMeal.